The boy slipped beneath the waves and disappeared into the deep. When Taiha was just a little boy, his family was stabbed in the back and thrown into the middle of the sea. He couldn't do anything but swim through the wild waves to get to his mother. But when he finally found her, she was already gone. Taiha watched in horror as the giant wave pulled him under, watching his friends sink into the dark water one by one. Right as he was about to drown, a hand grabbed him. It was his grandfather, the supreme leader of the Cheon-gu group. Trembling, Taiha tried to talk about his parents, but the old man cut him off, warning, no matter what happens, never forget this, you must take revenge on them all, before handing Taiha a pen, the mark that would make him the rightful heir. After that, his grandfather took off his own life jacket, gave it to Taiha, and tossed him back into the water. Days later, the boy was found by the Italian mafia, who would turn him into a cold-blooded assassin driven by a lonely quest for revenge. A giant cargo ship zooming through the area caused the trouble. A smile breaks through the bright light hiding their face. After being pulled to safety, Taiha felt a mix of terror and bewilderment. Two guards with rifles were shocked to find the little boy still alive. One of them starts shouting to his boss, letting him know the boy is safe. As he hears a strange new language, he realizes with a start that he and the stranger are both Italian. The man kept trying to get a word in with his boss. Someone appears to be hearing that call. As one man grumbles about his boss showing up again, a heavy-set man asks if the little kid can understand him. But Taiha notices the tattoo standing out on the man's neck. So the hero realizes that with that tattoo and those weapons, the folks on that ship aren't just ordinary people. Suddenly, the leader springs forward, startling him, and lands right in front of the boy to ask how he got onto her ship. Her subordinate warns that the child won't speak their language, so she gets annoyed and orders them to find someone who can help them talk. Taiha just stood there, watching them with nervous eyes and not knowing what to do. To her shock, he starts talking in Italian and tells her that his yacht was attacked nearby. Hearing this, she wonders where that amazing kid came from. He tells us he is Korean and that when a storm hit, armed men stormed his family's ship and killed his parents and grandfather. The leader explained that after washing up on shore, he somehow made it onto the Cerno family ship. Confused, the boy wonders who the Cerno family really is. She starts laughing at the absurdity of an Asian kid claiming to be from the Gulf of Aden in the Middle East while speaking Italian. Holding a knife, the woman admits it's shameful, yet she can't quite believe it herself. Regina holds the blade to the boy's chest and asks if there's any reason she shouldn't throw him back into the sea. The boy stood frozen, not knowing what words to say to get out of that mess. Shaking with nerves, he scrambles to come up with something fast. Taiha proudly displays the pen his grandfather left him, revealing that he is Seoko's grandson and Suyak's son. He says that instead of sending him back, they could help him reconnect with his people and gain great rewards. Regina looks upset and asks if he's really talking about the Cheon-gu group, the biggest business family in South Korea, since that brat is actually part of it. So the boss tells her team to find out what's happening in Korea. As both of them search for clues about what the boy mentioned, the woman pauses to ask if the child can speak any other languages. He tells her he speaks Cantonese, English, Japanese, Arabic, Spanish, Hindi, and Esperanto well enough to chat in each one. One of the men claims he has some news from Korea. Regina smiles, finding the whole thing fascinating. She tells the boy that if he wants to reach out to someone in Korea, he can just ask them. But the boy remembered his grandfather's words, which told him to find lawyer Kim because he would know how to help. He tells her he needs her to reach out to someone who isn't part of his family. In the quiet town of Seoul, just past midnight at 1:12 a.m., someone picks up the phone to ask who is calling. The person claims to be calling from overseas, insists they will speak only in English, and asks if he is a lawyer named Kim. Regina tells the old man that the lawyer must have seen the photo of her precious grandson and is now asking if she should send him back to Korea, but the old man just asks what she could possibly mean by that. She proposes $10 million and tells him to meet her at the Panama Canal to swap the cash. But he says he's too busy to negotiate, so he throws out a counter-offer of $1 million. He set his drink down, snatched up a nearby microphone, swore a blue streak, and declared he'd make $1 million. While dancing with a crowd, the madman offers her $1 million to kill Taiha. He commands the woman to kill the boy, send him a video proof within 5 minutes, and promises her $1 million reward. Regina asked what would happen if he didn't send the money after the job was done. As all eyes turn to him, the lawyer confidently claims he can send that tiny sum with just 3 taps on his phone. Kim warns that if she doesn't act, he'll tell the press that they were the ones behind the attacks. After hanging up, he reassured his master that everything was fine, as he'd already found some mercenaries nearby. Thanks to that clever move, the Cheon-gu group finally belongs to them. The boy stood frozen, unable to move from the terrifying news he had just heard. After all, that man wants him dead in just 5 minutes, so his fear grows with every passing second, and the woman says that's just how things work now that her reason for keeping him alive is gone. Terrified, Taiha starts begging them not to kill him. But Regina says he's no longer part of a wealthy family, and they're probably already getting ready for his funeral. She wonders if the boy understands that killing others to steal their life's work is just how things are done in her world. Terrorized, he cries out that his uncles and relatives are plotting to murder his whole family. While the two guards chat and assure him his boss won't kill him, she enjoys teasing him. His body shakes with fear as he realizes he cheated death in the wild ocean only to face a deadly end from strangers he doesn't know. He wondered what Chonggu meant and if it was truly worth killing his parents and grandfather just for the titles they held. Just then, the door bursts open and someone shouts that they're being attacked. The guy tells them that 3 patrol ships and a super heavily armed military helicopter have shown up. She wonders if they are Interpol, but the man shakes his head, saying they aren't even answering their radios. Regina can't make sense of what's going on, because only someone completely crazy would do something like that. As she gazes at the child, she finally knows who did it. Realizing the Koreans must have reached out to those people to find the boy. Suddenly, Taiha drives the pen straight into his own right hand. Nobody knows what that little one is trying to do. He says the Chonggu group will never hand her the cash. The woman knows killing him would give her nothing, and the Salerno family's trade leader is surprised by the boy's sharp thinking. He begged her to take him along, promising to stay loyal forever if she would help him take revenge. She wonders how he knew the Cerno mark. The crazy woman starts laughing in a wild, unhinged way. Regina, buzzing with excitement, tells Mateo to get ready because the show is about to start. Before she walks away, she asks the boy if he truly understands how heavy those words are. He wonders if he truly wants the power of revenge, even if it means getting his hands dirty with blood. He remembered his grandfather's urgent warning to take Changgu at any cost. With a firm nod, the hero shows he has made his decision. She grinned and said that barking dogs rarely bite, though she found the whole scene strangely interesting. The crazy woman kicks the door, begging them to follow her and shouting that from this moment on, the boy belongs to the Cerno family, living and dying for them. So, he must keep his eyes open wide, because what he sees next is the path of his own future. Taiha watches in stunned silence as what she sees plays out before her eyes. After 17 long years, he finally comes back to Korea. The boy begs his parents to watch over him as he goes out to get his revenge. But then, he looks surprised by something. He spun around quickly to take another look back. He leaps to the side just as bullets rip through the spot he was standing in. Soldiers arrived and fired many shots at Taiha. Some people stepped out of their cars and asked if those bugs don't even know how to aim. The security guard and manager of the Changgu group told them to find the senior administrative director, saying he didn't know that man and that anyone thinking they could kidnap a Cheon-gu director is truly crazy. A subordinate runs to the manager with the good news that they've finally found the car. He tells everyone to handle the trunk with care because the director is still inside. Just as he tells them to check his wounds, a huge explosion goes off. The guy gets mad at the nerve of someone planting a bomb right there. But then, suddenly, half of his men had their heads cut off, and when he looked back, the rest were gone too in an instant, all beaten by Taiha in just a few moments. The man spots a tiny cut along his waist. Feeling nervous, he realizes he is safe because of the protective vests. The bald man lunges at the protagonist, sneering, "You're just a tiny bug." But the boy quickly shows he's not the only one who can fight by landing another cut on his opponent's back and slashing him in half. As Jenong falls to the ground, he stares in shock, unable to understand how that thing could have done that. Everyone is arguing about who that scary monster actually is. On the other hand, the hero didn't look happy about it. He starts wiping down his daggers as he walks away to a fancy car, where he grabs a bag sitting in the back seat. So, he walks over and opens the trunk. Squirming in fear, the director begged Taiha to let him go, claiming he was just following orders from former lawyer Kim, who had ordered his death and insisted he had no reason to kill the chairman. But the boy opens the bag, hurls a handful of cash over the man, and shouts that this is the $1 million that was never meant for him, leaving the terrified man to beg Taiha to explain what he's talking about. The director still remembers that day. The protagonist pulls a lighter from his coat, saying that because he died that day, he can now bring back the light he lost. As he tossed the lighter, he whispered that he was reborn. Kim starts to burn to death. Taiha just watches everything with a cold, indifferent look. After that, he calmly grabs whatever is there. As he puts a cigar in his mouth, the protagonist silently asks his parents and grandfather for forgiveness for keeping them waiting, hoping they won't worry and can find peace, promising to carry their pain from now on. After a while, in the heart of the city, a modern building stood tall and unique among the others. The hero burst into action, driven by a fierce need to move. Some men stared at him, wondering where he thought he was going, and reached for their guns to stop him. But the madman just kills them both in a flash. Even with the surprise, Taiha didn't mind and just kept walking down the hall with a calm smile. When he saw the scene, the man sat on the floor in fear. Scared, he asks the protagonist who sent him there. The guy warns that Taiha is in danger now that he has joined the Cheon-gu group. As Taiha wipes down his blade, he explains that this is Holdings, a private security group working under Cheon-gu. Their main job is to keep directors and board members safe from trouble in the gangbook area when they're off the clock. When they have free time, they hunt down journalists or anyone who has written about Cheon-gu. Then they kidnap and attack the people, sometimes even killing them, which means they are hired killers. The folks who had been caught were broken and begging for help. The protagonist just throws a dagger to the old man. After that, he asks everyone to use it to set themselves free and to make sure they never see him there again. So the ropes were cut, but the three of them were still totally confused by everything that just happened. The old man rises and hands the knife back to the boy. As they run and leave, shouting thanks, the company leader yells for everyone to come back. One of the fugitives glances back as a man complains nearby. The big man looked confused and asked if Taha was really one of their own family. Taking off his mask, the boy shakes his head and says no, letting the others know he just wants to talk quietly. He says he needs the schedules for everyone on the board, from the directors all the way up to the chairman. The guy says he doesn't know, and even if he did, he'd never speak up because doing so would mean him and his family are dead. The protagonist claims the man values his life so much that he'll begin by taking out his eye and will raise his hand as soon as he feels ready. Up on the building, a huge outside screen showed the news about a famous star. Instead, a few folks were sitting on the stairs, having nowhere else to go. The heat was so intense that a cicada lay dead on the ground, its stillness broken by the sound of someone rushing past. As Taiha strolled along, he realized a cigar might draw too much notice, so he started wondering if he should switch to Korean cigarettes instead. The street was packed with people at that time. He says he is finally back in Korea and things look normal, but he notices the country is going crazy with ads for credit and insurance popping up everywhere. The politician stood at the podium, promising to use his power to wipe out the city's crime and violence. He promised that from that day forward, his fight against crime would be open to everyone. Just as he begins to speak, someone suddenly points a gun at him, cutting his words off. It is believed that in 1990, the president was killed while fighting against organized crime. Since then, no one has stood up to stop criminal groups from turning the country into a violent, money-ruled place. The boy walked through the streets lost in thought while the Cheon-gu group teamed up with criminals to bribe the media and crush their rivals. They spent so much money on fun and games that people stopped caring about politics, so much that even a dog could run for office. Even so, folks kept saying the Cheon-gu group was doing good for everyone. Taiha walks quietly into the store. The clerk smiles and greets him, then he and another young guy both ask for a pack of the item. They just stared at one another, confused that such a strange accident had happened. Feeling a bit annoyed, the protagonist decides to pick something else. But both are thinking the same thing and want a plus at the same time. They lock eyes once more, each one wondering if the other is hiding something. The woman stammers, saying sadly there's just one pack left. Tai has let out a deep sigh, clearly annoyed by what just happened. He steps back, tells her to hand that pack to the other man, and says he'll be just fine without it. The man keeps staring after the boy walks away. Right after buying his item, the man steps outside and finds the protagonist, who politely asks to borrow a cigarette. But the man suggests the boy could just go to another store, yet Taha says it's been so long since he was in Korea that he really wants to try it now. The guy stops trying to stay away from him. As he passes the cigarette, he shakes his head in disbelief that anyone would want to try such a tasteless thing. As they walk, the man warns that smoking there will get him fined, so he suggests they wait until they reach a proper smoking spot. Watching this, Taiha admits that after 17 years in the mafia, a single glance is all it takes to judge a person. He wonders if as many tough guys like the ones he fought overseas are out there in Korea. As he leaves, the main character says he'd rather never see that person again. After a while, that same man shows up at the spot where the hero had once wiped out the whole group. He takes a drag on his cigarette and calmly watches over one of the bodies. The guy bends down to take a closer look at the dead bodies. He sees that everyone has been stabbed to death by a blade about as long as a sashimi knife. He drops his cigarette into the pool of blood, then grabs his phone to call his boss. His master scolds him for calling so late, and the man suggests canceling the meeting since the master has already said no to visiting this hour. After all, the assassin who killed Director Kim might still be hunting him. The man sipping his wine quietly starts to wonder what's going on. His subordinate says he checked with the security company and found them dead, and the wound suggests someone attacked them alone. Since the assassin isn't just anyone, he probably knows exactly where that meeting is taking place. But his master says that when things go wrong, holding a family meeting is just how the Cheon-gu group always handles it. Wondering if his man truly believed anyone would crash a family-only meeting, he explained that he sent him there specifically to hunt that target without anyone noticing. As he gets lost in thought, the cuts from the knife suddenly bring back a memory. He recalls the protagonist asking for a cigarette and, as he takes it, insists that without using knives, he could never have earned the deep scars on his palms. Thinking on this, Hui-man turns to his master and asks if anyone in his family knows how to handle a knife. Laughing, he jokes that those people can't even slice an apple, and he adds that the only ones missing from the room are the kids. So he gives Hyun another 100 million to guard the place and make sure it stays safe, then heads out to the meeting. Even with that, he still wants more guards to keep him safe. His master, clearly annoyed, just says he gets it. He passes his phone to a coworker and calls the madman a gangster, still convinced he can give orders. As he walked down the hall, he fixed his hair and got ready for the meeting. As soon as he walked into the meeting, he gave his boss a hello and asked when the chairman got there. While on the phone, Weeman tells his gang boss he'll help the Chonga group for one last day before heading back. But instead of getting mad, he calmly asks if his boss has been drinking. He tells him they offered another 100 million for the job and said only a fool would say no. But there's a deadly killer on the loose, and he spots the hero hiding in the alley. Quickly, the woman ends the talk, tells him he can share the details later, and glances at the boy. Feigning innocence, he asks if one cigarette wasn't enough. Taiha insists that finding such a capable person right at the crash site wasn't a coincidence, and she's glad she decided to follow him. The man smiled and said it had been quite a day, noting first how they took a cigarette from him and then how they followed him. He admits with a mix of shock and disbelief that he finally caught someone, something he'd never noticed before. Taking a step closer, the protagonist asks one quick question before they begin: "Are you working with the Cheon-gu group?" Hui-man also speaks up, saying that if you missed the talk, he's just helping out for now. Then the boy stares right back, his eyes burning with pure anger. He pulls two daggers from his back and quickly clashes his blade against the enemy's weapon. They both glance at each other, sizing up who has the better skill. So, the two start trading blows in a wild rush. Hui-man jumps up and lands right above the protagonist. He whips his gear around to throw a punch. To his shock, his bat shattered into many pieces. The gangster, catching on, wonders just when that must have happened. Suddenly, Taiha vanished so quickly that she was gone before anyone could even blink. But his opponent suddenly gets scared when he realizes something is wrong. The ground had swapped with the sky, leaving the protagonist soaring above while trembling with fear as she readied her final strike, and Hwan whispered that the Chongu were in deep trouble after becoming prey to such a terrifying monster. Taiha dives straight at his enemy, his blade swinging with every rush. The gangster is lost and scared since he lost his gun. After striking the man and wiping the blood from his blade, the protagonist casually steps away, leaving Humian's body behind as he heads for the alley exit. To his shock, the wounded man asked if the boy was just joking, since he hadn't died yet, and he warned that leaving him alive would bring regret. After sheathing his dagger, Taha explains that he follows his own rules and warns that if he had joined the Chonga group, he would already be dead. He warns the man to stay out of his way, or next time he helps his enemies, he'll show no mercy. If he can't accept that he was spared, he can just think of it as payment for the cigarette. Still lying on the ground, Himman smiles to himself, knowing that a cheap cigarette just saved his life. Soon, a car speeds down the streets in a rush. It was clear that the hero was behind the wheel. For some reason, he looked like he was both hurting and annoyed. Seeing a wound right at his waist, Taiha remarks that the blow didn't go deep enough. While driving, he insists he can still move and pushes the car harder, racing to beat the 32-minute mark. He says that after waiting 17 years for revenge, it's finally coming true with just 32 minutes left in the game. Once more, the boy is swept away by memories of his childhood. His mother pleaded with him to close his eyes while his father threw himself in front of them to stop the bullets from hitting either of them. Though trembling with fear and worry, he sprints toward his dad. The man begged his wife to grab the boy and run, asking what she was doing as he did so. So his mother rushes to grab Taiha and pull them away. Suddenly, the ship starts lurching all over the place like it's having a panic attack. Even the assassins are fighting hard just to stay on their feet. His mother sets the boy outside the door. She pleads with her son to grab a life vest and dive into the water. With a grin, Hae-jong claims he must stay alive. One of the men complains that it's frustrating and says he only ordered the bombs to go off after every single person was gone. As he looks at them, the hero feels shocked to see the killer speaking Korean. With his face hidden behind a mask and goggles, the man pointed his aim right at him and his mother. Jong's heart sinks into despair, and in a frantic plea, he tells Taiha to sprint away before it's too late. The boy sprints wildly across the boat, trying hard to get away. The child was more than just startled, she was absolutely terrified. He sprinted away, gasping for air while tears kept rolling down his face. The first blast had already set part of the yacht ablaze, but then another bomb suddenly went off. Because of this, the ship starts to sink faster and faster, bringing us back to the present day inside the secret annex of Gangbook. The head of the Cheonggu department store asks if they've truly found the man who killed director Kim. However, Jashong says it was likely a crime of passion, since the director had 2 secret lovers. His sister calls it disgusting, but the guy points out the irony of her saying that while she's been cheating on her own husband. Jong-won asked about director Kim's stock share and said they needed to make a big announcement about it soon. Suddenly, a hand slams down on the table, snapping everyone's heads toward it. The man commands total silence from everyone. Guho calls out to his son, telling him to speak up. Chang says there were 2 employees found at the scene. But since they had nothing new to add and knew no one else was around to hear it, they were quietly let go. The guy claimed they were just subcontractors who knew nothing about the whole thing, and the police promised the incident would never get out. Just then, his father hurled a wine glass right at his head. Everyone at the table looked around in disbelief, wondering what had just gone down. The old man leans forward and asks, "Where is the Ong gang?" Chang's face showed he was getting really mad about that. Even so, the man cracks a smile and says they don't know what they're up to, not even sending Huim, the 7th in command. But in a fit of madness, the man smashes a bottle right over his son's head. The old man explained that even after a full day, he still couldn't find the killer or his hideout, so he decided to report a gang instead. He says that if the former chairman and Soo Yak hadn't passed away 17 years ago, a man as useless as him would never have even stepped foot there. Besides the wine, the guy's face was totally soaked in blood. No matter what happened, Chong promises to find him within the next 12 hours. The rest of the family notices that neither of them has changed, and this worries everyone. Jui wonders why he treats his oldest son so harshly, but her brother insists it's not because he hates him. He insists that his words must come from fear. Chong snatches a cloth and quickly orders his subordinate to hand over his phone. As he wipes the grime from his face, he reaches for his phone to hunt down a clue. He wonders where his men are, but his assistant quickly reassures him that they're already ready. The madman gushes that it's thrilling, eagerly waiting to see how magnificent that grand entrance will be. Under the cover of night, the protagonist pushed forward down the dark road, his eyes locked on the goal ahead. Taiha reveals that 17 years ago, right before his grandfather's funeral and just as he joined the Cerno family, Guho snatched the chairman title and all the shares while chaos from a failed war on crime was swirling, quickly teaming up with gangs like the Ong to grow his power. Even though that marked the start of the Cheon era, they still gather with their official members whenever times like that call for it. This was an old family tradition passed down from his grandfather's time. Neither the rules nor the old ways changed, so everyone fought to climb Sioko's ladder, even killing their own parents and him just to get to the top. While watching the cameras, one security guard wondered whose car was pulling up. So he asks his boss if anyone is expecting a guest, but his boss says no. He tells him that a car is speeding straight for the front gates with no sign of slowing down. The head of security spots that trouble is coming from a madman, so he tells the pillars to rise up. With that, several containment balloons start popping up from the ground, but the hero pushes even harder to speed up. In the end, he doesn't need any tricks to take down someone who has been safe their whole life. Taking off his belt, Taiha remarks that there's no point in making big plans. The smash-up took out the front of his car. Even so, he springs forward with his sword drawn, daring them to forget his family so he can shout it from the rooftops, leaving the guards staring at him in stunned silence. The boy wipes them all out in one swift strike and declares that he's back. Confused, they asked what the loud noise was and wondered why it kept getting louder. It looks like something is approaching from the front gate. While everyone else was lost, Chang looked puzzled yet sure of himself. His uncle tells the guy to head over and find out what's causing all the fuss. But to Zhang Wan's surprise, he says that isn't necessary. Every guard in the hall aims his weapon straight at the family. The oldest sister wonders what is going on. Guho, annoyed, questions if they truly want to play now. But his son stands there calmly, wiping his mouth. The old man wonders if he'll truly go through with it. Chang grinned and said his dad had always known this day would come eventually. His dad was always mad at him because he feared turning into his grandfather. The madman's face twists into horror as he admits that he himself is the one who killed his grandfather and uncle. Meanwhile, the hero walked through the gates, ready to finally start his revenge. The security guards raise their guns, wondering if this is a trap. Zhang wonders if his nephew has lost his mind. They wonder why the man is holding a gun on his own family, because no one should ever point a weapon at the people they love. But Chang insists he's not doing anything at all. Even though they keep yelling at him, they're just making it clear that they've said enough. Jui stares at one of the guards and wonders if he'll truly betray them all for that kid. Even though he is supposed to be her personal bodyguard, young men keep apologizing to him, proving he is actually leaving her behind. Even the second son's own guard admits it wasn't personal, because the promise of reward for betraying his family was simply too tempting to resist. But one person argues that if they'd just gotten a raise, all this wouldn't have happened. The only one left keeping quiet is Chang's own bodyguard. The father can forgive the others for betraying him, but he can't understand why his own son did it. He wonders if his guard will truly turn his back on them. Jun-Soo stands frozen and silent, just watching what happens around him. The man explains that he isn't hired to guard the father personally, but instead to watch over the Changgu group. Zhang Wan wonders if the guards truly believe they'll get anything out of this. He pushes forward to keep threatening them, but suddenly a cold gun is pressed against his head. His own bodyguard shoots him dead without a second thought. With that, the two last siblings are so scared they start begging for mercy. Yet shouts ring out as blood flies everywhere, and Chang calmly tosses a rag to his helper before strolling straight up to his father. The old man admits he always figured this day would come since his other son died of leukemia, and not long after that, his wife walked out without asking for a single thing. Shaking with anger, he admits he always suspected Chang was pulling all the strings, which is why he kept his distance. As he spun the gun, the guy noted that for someone who ordered his father and brother's deaths, Guho was talking way too much. With the gun pressed against his own head, the man asks the old man who sent his father and brother out to sea. He wonders if there was anything else he could have done, because if he hadn't killed them all, Soyaka's son would have taken the presidency, and they never would have ended up here. The psychopath steps up to ask why his dad never named him the next boss. The old man grows more and more scared as everything unfolds around him. But his son was staring at him in a terrifying way, and Guo said if he had done that, the boy would have killed him much sooner. He admits he would have killed him sooner, but he's upset that his father still thinks killing him won't stop him from becoming president. But Chang cuts him off, saying he already knows. After all, any power gained through a violent coup isn't recognized because the committee wrote that rule. Just then, the guy remarks that it's a real shame. He tells the president that the person making noise outside isn't one of their own, and the president immediately asks who it could be. As he shoots his father, he says this young master waited 17 long years for this moment. The guards opened fire on the intruder. Since he had no gun to fight back, they tried to close in on him from all sides. The protagonist recalls that the core security team, who look after the leaders, hold top jobs. So he expects these new bodyguards to be way tougher than the ones he faced before. He pauses his run to shift his path, but the boy insists this won't be an issue. He dashes in a zigzag line toward the enemies to dodge their bullets, using a guard as a human shield, and frantically begs them not to fire because he knows he'll get caught in the crossfire. The guards don't care and fire anyway, leaving one of them terrified as his gun snaps in half. In a split second, Taiha wipes out every opponent faster than anyone can react. The leader shouts at his men to get the president out of there right now. But the hero still throws his dagger at the guy. The guard manages to stop the knife. A man wearing glasses looks around, confused by the loud noise, and asks if they can't just do it quietly. 3 department leaders step forward to stop him, but he pays them no mind and quickly ends their lives. One of them steps forward, claiming he can take him on by himself and telling his friends to stay put. Even though Taiha is incredibly strong, the wound from earlier is getting worse by the minute. Suddenly snapping back to reality, he sees his enemy's fist is already right in front of his face. So his only choice is to stand his ground against the rush while he gets pushed back. He just barely steadies himself, but then a dark shadow suddenly looms over him. The man demanded to know how he dared to attack his land while being distracted. So he nods, decides that wounds can wait, and drives his blade straight through the man's heart. His friends are shocked when they see him fall so quickly. Taiha quickly hurls his last dagger at the 2 enemies still standing. Neither of them felt as sure of themselves as they had at first. It was a shock, but the intruder had already struck the man who was trying to fight from a distance. Chilho struggles to follow him with his eyes as he grabs one of the knives he has tossed. The hero slices off the head of the final department head. Because of this, he managed to beat every guard standing outside. As he heads toward the door, he spots his second dagger. He picks it up with a calm smile, acting like he's all alone in the world. As he wiped the blood away, he felt the time had slipped by longer than he'd planned. Despite all that, the spot feels oddly quiet. Wondering if they hid away in a secret passage, the boy starts walking through the house, not knowing what dangers lie ahead. Finally, he entered the bloody room and found Chang sitting there alone, waiting for him with a welcome smile. He also congratulates him for making it this far and asks if he wants to sit down to catch his breath and rest. Even the main character is left confused, unable to make sense of what is going on. Zhang Wan saw the bullet hole in Jiashong's forehead and realized his Aunt Jui had met the same end. The president who was sitting in the chair had passed away too. Standing up, his cousin jokes that he looks even better than expected, noting that modern assassins must really take care of themselves. Chang greets him with a formal nod and asks if he knows him. On the other side, the hero just whispers the man's name and tells everyone he is Guo's oldest son. Laughing, the madman claims he can't recall them ever getting so close to the edge that he called his father by his first name. Suspicious, Taiha just watches the strange things happening. His cousin says he waited there because he felt it was rude not to say hello, and he's also here to explain that even if you don't want to sit down, that's fine since they won't be there long. Chang asks the boy if he remembers the day, 17 years ago, when the Italian mafia saved him. Just as he's speaking, his bodyguard cuts him off to say the helicopter is ready and they must leave right now because it's too dangerous to stay. Feeling annoyed, the guy warned her that she should only call him after he had finished talking. Suddenly, Taiha is shocked by what he hears and realizes with horror that this voice belongs to the man who killed his family 17 years ago. Remembering the man who aimed his rifle at him and his mother, the person who mocked the early explosions while laughing under his mask. Furious, Tai demands to know if he was that worm. The madman struggles to stop laughing, mutters that he has nothing left to say, and warns the protagonist to stop speaking so casually or he might just kill him. Pushing ahead, he orders the guy to keep going because he started out with the plan to wipe out the whole family. But his cousin insists that there's a rule in Korea where you must act Korean, so he tells him to stop speaking his own way. Feeling annoyed, Taiha starts digging deeper to figure out exactly what's going on. He realizes that Chang knows he is still alive after all these years and knows exactly who he really is. He can't stop wondering why Chang waited 17 years after the event to finally pull off his coup. The man tries to grab the boy's attention, telling him to really listen because he's about to start. Only then does Taiha realize that the madman isn't actually trying to take over. He wants to pin the attack on Taiha, saying she led it so Chang could finally take the presidency. Junyak tells the young master that introductions aren't needed. The boy holds his dagger steady as the bodyguard starts shooting at him. But the killer slips past every bullet fired at him. He uses his sword to bend the incoming shots away while sprinting quickly to get closer to his enemy. But just then, another guard smashes a hard blow into the boy. Even though he knew more blows were coming, he couldn't guess when the next hit would land. In contrast to the others, a man steps forward and says his name is Juno Park. The young master skids back just in time to face his enemies before he gets trapped. Yoongi doesn't hesitate to shoot at him again, proving he's faster than the rumors say and boasting that he'd rule the track and field if he were a pro. His partner steps in front of the hero, cutting off the only way out. Even Taiha starts to get a little nervous about what's happening. Juno wonders if being flexible is the key to the young master's success. He unleashed a rapid, wild flurry of strikes without giving himself a moment to pause. Taiha sees that they are powerful and totally unlike the ones he faced outside. If only that wound weren't there, he could have faced them with no trouble at all. He sees that Chang has lowered his guard, knowing this might be the only moment he has before the guard Jun Su arrives. If the woman next to him is then there are only 3 guards, but the meeting was supposed to have 4 members. Just when he thinks he's safe, Juno suddenly jumps in to strike him. By spotting the 4th guard's face in the enemy's eye, Taiha finally finds him. Young Min gripped his sword tightly, ready to strike from behind. To their own surprise, he vanishes right between them. They simply can't figure out how that could ever happen. Kneeling on the floor, the main character knows this has to be the final one. The guy grumbles about the reflection and blames Juno, but his friend snaps back that if it were easy, the boy would already be dead. As they reload their guns, Janie whispers that he can't even imagine the bonus they'll get if they kill that guy. So, both he and the Guardian Glasses fired their weapons at the assassin. Chang shouts that keeping up with a battle mixing arrows and fists is a real struggle. He warns them that Interpol has been spreading rumors about his inhuman speed, and they trained a whole squad just to take him down. He admits he considered blowing him up with a bomb, but he figured dying in battle would make him look like a true hero. Juno steps in front of the boy to stop him from running away. Junie says that how quickly he moves doesn't matter at all. Now that Taiha is trapped, everything comes to an end. With that, the guard swings his metal-fisted hand to try and land a hit. The main character stood with little to do but watched the attack rush toward him. His cousin grinned with a nasty look and thanked him for the show. His enemy's punch knocks him backward, slamming him into the wall until it cracks right down the middle. Back 4 years ago, Regina was yelling at him for using the traitor as paint on the walls instead of taking care of him. Even she felt sick to her stomach at the sight of that terrible scene. Even while they argued, the woman pointed out that his speed meant he could have slipped away without making a sound. She remembers the day they saved him and admits she gets why he's angry, since Lorenzo always treated him well, but she knows that killing someone like that will only make people want revenge. Regina, acting as the boy's mentor and the Cerno family's voice, asks him not to do that again. Yet, the hero did not look happy or regretful at all. Even so, he insists that nobody will ever find out, but she is confused and asks Taiha what he means. He says that if they silently kill traitors, their deaths won't serve as a warning to others. He insists that everyone must know the terrible fate waiting for anyone who betrays the family, and he wants the rumors about it to twist and grow wilder than ever. By doing this, we can cut down on the traitors and stop the endless fighting. She asks if he walked the bloody path just to stop even more blood from being spilled. As he took a step back, he found the whole area soaked in blood. She calls it ridiculous that a boy could stand in a river of blood with not a single drop on his face. Regina cuts her own train of thought short to say that being an assassin clearly isn't his thing. John Ho stops dead in his tracks as a bright light suddenly starts glowing right in the center of his chest. As the glowing light keeps shining, the man starts coughing up blood. Even Chong and his female bodyguard were shocked by it. The hero slashed the man with a terrifying blow. He shoots a dangerous glare at the others, his eyes full of threat. Yongmin fires his weapon in fear, but his eye is hit instantly. Once hit by the attack, the guy realizes they were wrong about the man, because he's not just fast, he's also incredibly strong. And the people who truly saw what he could do never got to tell the tale. Even though Taiha kept fighting with everything he had, his wounds were getting worse and he was in terrible pain. Jun-yuk felt a wave of panic because no one had ever believed he was this strong before. Suddenly, Jun-soo pops up, shouting for the woman to lead the master outside, promising he'll be right behind them. Seeing this, the boy is surprised to notice his cousin trying to leave. He screams out to get the man's attention. He slices past both of Junie's weapons and sprints straight toward the elevator. Chong pokes his head out to peek at the commotion. With fury taking over, Taiha snarls at him to explain where he thinks he's going while their standoff is still very much alive. But Jun-soo was guarding the door and welcomed the young master. He is shocked to see the president's bodyguard arrive, yet the boy jumps forward to clear a path only to find the guard stop both knives with one hand. The old man readies his punch but stops, seeing the boy has grown so much that he admits he is truly impressed. With those words, the man rains blows across the protagonist, shattering nearly every rib and leaving him coughing blood, only for him to snap the blades in his grip before Juno steps in to declare it over, smashing a knee into the same spot to launch the assassin flying. But the old man is shocked to find a slice missing from his clothes. The man looked at his subordinate and told Junie to stand up, insisting that she was okay. Feeling so scared, he admitted he once thought it was all over. The old man shouts that the building will blow up any second now, telling him to grab his friend and run. The protagonist lay on the ground, looking completely dead. Once on the roof, the president's bodyguard made a beeline for the waiting helicopter. Chang asks if the work is done, and the man confirms it, promising to blow up the building the moment they take off. Jun-soo says he'll get ready for takeoff, but the other guy just tells him to keep the door open and get them airborne. He slipped on the headset and his guard warned them that flying through the chopper would be a nightmare, so he suggested shutting it down. But the psychopath insists he must watch it, saying he's waited a long time for this exact moment. As the helicopter lifts off, Chang stands right at the open door. He watches calmly with a smile, swearing and saying he has always hated that house. As the guy grumbles about how much his family drives him crazy and acts fake, Dean and Jun-soo just lock eyes with each other. All at once, the madman snaps back to the moment the hero told him their fight wasn't over yet. He smiles and calls him a poor child, since he lived to take revenge only to meet the same fate. He asks them if they know that the word family actually comes from the Latin word for slave. Gripping the detonator, he asks everyone to watch as he changes Cheonggu forever by blowing up the mansion where those secret meetings took place. Inside, Taiha was sprawled on the floor, out cold. Still confused, he hears the helicopter and knows it's time to go. He changed his mind and said he still has time. Meanwhile, Chang just watches the place blow up. He tossed the detonator down and declared they'd made a flashy exit. As the hero jumps through the fire, the crazed leader claims the heat is too much and wants to rest, ordering his men to head straight to the main building. But Taiha slashes at him with his knife, yet all he manages is to cut the calf. His cousin starts screaming because of the pain. Both guards spring to their feet, hearts pounding with worry. He calls him an insect and asks what he's doing, clearly annoyed. The hero wonders if he truly believed he could run away after tearing apart so many families. With Chaeyoung's leg tearing deeper as he hangs from the blade, Taiha shouts that he will kill him no matter what. Diane snatches up her weapon and tells her master to get out of the way. But the madman grabs the pistol and vows to do it all himself. Chang points the gun at his cousin and asks if he really believes he is the hero of that story. He boldly claimed to be the hero, yet he called the boy a castaway and told him to die. As Taiha plummets, he dodges the deadly bullets, though he still takes a few other hits. And so, he plunges downward without any brakes. The moment the helicopter door shuts, the bodyguard dials the hospital to scream that an emergency is happening. The hero was plummeting from a height that made no sense at all. Luckily, he bumps into a tree, which slows him right down. Even so, he crashes into the side of a house, tumbles onto a truck, and rolls down near a stream. A cyclist riding by just happened to see the whole scene. She halts her steps and gazes right at him. It was one of the people he'd pulled to safety from that security company earlier. The young man realizes that the man who saved him is right in front of him. Feeling weak and worried that he came too late, the man still hears a cry for help. Glancing back at Taiha, he watches closely as the protagonist struggles to stay awake while begging for help. Even with terrible wounds, he kept saying it wasn't over and begged for help. Someone sent an 11-minute voice message in a chat app. Someone called for help, saying the guy flat out refused the breathalyzer 3 times and insisted he was actually Congressman Kim. A man jotted down notes while listening to former director Kim's recording, using his power to scare the police. He asks a friend if they can hear his voice and make out his name. The person asks where the director is, and the young man says he's probably at the station giving a statement before heading home soon. His friend looks like they are holding back. So, the guy offers 200 and asks if that's enough to bring down a big shot from the majority party. For a while, the only sound was the rhythmic tapping of keys on the screen, and to his shock, the counter offer came in at just 30. He gets so angry that he insists it is worth way more. But the buyer says it's not election season, so nobody is paying attention to those old men. The guy tells the buyer that normal folks only pay one price for a thing, but celebrities are willing to spend 10 times as much. But if that person is somehow connected to Cheonggu, that number jumps up to a massive 1,000 times. He takes a deep breath and realizes that Cheonggu is the center of everything. After a while, the radio came on with news of a crash at the tower. The guy isn't interested in what he hears, so he just turns off the device. He stood up, ready to go. But he wasn't out on the street, he was sitting inside a restaurant. The owner was already getting ready to start the day. The woman tells the young man that if he hangs around, he'll be too late. The boy insists he's okay and promises to make it on time if he rides his skateboard. So, she tells him to eat something, but if he does, he'll be running very late. Out of nowhere, a voice cuts in to tell the boss he needs to quit his games. A man walked in and told the owner they needed to sell the place before things got too awkward. Baksu looks at the young man and asks if he really doesn't see it his way. The lady asks if they are already there in the morning to collect money, noting that those who owe money surely know how to keep themselves busy. The woman tells the irritated boy not to worry and to head to school, insisting nothing will change anyway since there's nothing left for him to do. He grabs a knife and tells her not to speak so rashly, reminding her that they are already 2 months behind. The guy tells the woman to sell the building and take every last cent, since they both stand to gain from the deal. She tells him to go learn some simple math before he asks her to sell her place for such a tiny price. But at the same time, the kid stood at a station waiting for his ride. Tired from everything, he just sighs, wondering what to do next. He confesses that in his own neighborhood, battles over rebuilding are happening all over the place. With groups like Chonggu and Ong fighting each other, this land has been left alone for too long. It has become a wild place where little gangs prey on the folks living there. People like him and that lady are stuck with no place to go. When the restaurant owner came back with bruises on her face, she still just asked him to clean the tables. Feeling worried, he asks her what happened to her face. A customer says he saw some men from Yaburi leaving earlier and is furious, believing they are trying to force people to sell their buildings so they can redevelop them. She tells him not to worry and asks the brat to put his backpack in the back of the shop. The boy did exactly what the lady told him to do. But in a sudden fit of rage, he throws everything away without a second thought. Feeling annoyed, the boy complains to himself as he finally admits he has to do something. He remembers that before his father passed away, Dr. Yongguk was his father's best friend. She used to teach at a medical school, but when she met the Ong gang, she decided to take care of him anyway. Though the food was delicious and the dishes were perfectly prepared, neither she nor the restaurant was to blame for what happened. Suddenly, an idea strikes him as he remembers what that guy said on the phone. In the end, a member of the Cheon-gu group is worth 1,000 times more than anyone else. So the boy sent a message again. The man asks if there is any news, and though nervous, the kid tells him everything, even sending pictures that prove his story is true. He said that Juch, a bodyguard for one of Cheon's top security men, was dating Miho, the boss of the ladies' gang. Still scared, he waited for the buyer to say yes or no. Confused, the man asks what the boy wants, but then remembers the values they talked about earlier. The following day brought a bright and sunny Saturday. A few men in sharp suits step up to him and ask if he is gray. He nods to agree, but the moment he glances back, he knows it was a mistake. He hits the guy right in the stomach, knocks him out cold, and throws him into the back of a van. As Gray is dragged away, he finally grasps why they paid such a huge price. In the end, it was just a trap. The boy sat tied up inside the security company's room. The leader admits that while he first thought the kid was just a nuisance, he's actually really good at what he does. He wonders where he found those pictures and asks if his father kept them safe before he passed away. The guy wonders if the brat is Jingu's son, one of the ones who turned in Cheongu. Seeing this, Gray gives a slight smile and takes off his watch, prompting the guy to ask if he thinks that's funny. With that, he punches the boy in the face and asks if that's funny too. Still winning, the man asks if he can see more files just like that. The boy got hurt worse and worse as he was thrown to the ground while non-stop swearing was hurled at him. Even so, Gray just can't stop laughing and keeps chuckling. Still laughing, he calls the old man a piece of trash and says that if he had more, he'd have sold him already. The fat man orders his men to fetch the hammer. The guy warns that he'll pull every one of the boy's teeth until he gets that this isn't a game. Luckily for him, a security guard spots the old man and calls out to him. His subordinate warns that a call from HQ has arrived, saying they must provide security for the emergency meeting. He stands up and declares that if this is truly their top priority, then it's time to leave right now. So he commands them to silence the boy and shove him into the room. The fat man kicks him in the gut and says he'll come back later to finish this. Inside, he found an old man and a woman, and while lying on the floor, he said his father was a fool. He couldn't bring himself to expose Changgu because he felt so unfairly treated, and instead of fighting back, he just got into a car crash with his mom. Instead, he ought to have stayed in the shadows to live quietly and work for them. No matter how much his father knew, if he stayed weak, all that knowledge was useless. But soon, the security guard starts shouting and asking who that person is. Suddenly, the air fills with the sound of gunshots and terrified screams. Even the leader was so desperate he commanded his men to kill that man. Fear sweeps through everyone as they stand frozen, unsure of what is going on. Then suddenly, a huge door swings open right in front of them. The protagonist hands them the knife and says, "Use it to cut your way free and get out." After that, he made sure not a single one of the three had a clue he was even there. Neither of them really gets what just went down. As they walk away and thank him, the boy glances back one last time at the bodies, and Gray wonders if that stranger did it all by himself. Finally, after waiting a long time, he makes it back home. Young Suk reached out and asked what had happened to his face and where he had been while he was gone. She grows more and more furious, shouting for the boy to speak, but Gray remains silent, claiming nothing occurred. She smiles kindly and tells her not to worry. The boy walks up the stairs and pushes open the door to his room. She watches him with worry etched on her face. The moment he stepped into his room, he dropped to the floor. Still shocked, the boy wonders if the Own gang sent that guy there. They all had guns, but he cut them down with just 2 knives like he didn't even care. As the boy opens his drawer to look for something and wonders if the man was sent by someone, he closes it and guesses there must be more to it, possibly revenge. Remembering the department head's story about his father and the missing files on Changgu, the boy admits that even the most important secrets are useless without the power to use them. As Gray tries to open the files, he says he needs power. He says it's nearly impossible to spot him in all those folders just by looking at his face. But then he remembered a warning from one of his men about a sudden emergency meeting coming up. With that, he recalls how the top priority code slipped into Changgu's mission. Spotting his father's notes in the folders, he knew he had finally found it. It said that if something big happened, the top leaders would start their meeting at the Bug Mountain Annex. But despite having all those clues, they still didn't tell us where it was. Giving up, Gray shrugs and says he doesn't care because he doesn't even know the guy. Even so, he says that not everyone who looks toward Changgu will be looked back upon. The police radio crackles with news of the slaughter Taiha is committing, already listing several confirmed victims. Though the full ruin was still a mystery, it was certain that Cheon's top bosses had been hiding their secrets inside that grand mansion. As the boy stands up, he knows it has to be that man. So he grabs his bike and rides out into the quiet of the night to go there. Even though he didn't know who the person was or why they were acting that way, the only thing he could do at that moment was go there, just as he saw someone hanging from a helicopter right then. The boy followed the scary sounds of gunshots and cries to find where someone had fallen. But when he saw the man lying there with the blade in his hand and begging for mercy, he realized it wasn't over yet. Gray is stunned by the sheer toughness he sees. After a while, he reaches his home and shouts for his adoptive mom. Just like always, she was at work when the woman, suddenly shocked, asked who he was and what had happened to him, while the desperate boy begged Young Suk to save him. As the days went by, the protagonist felt stronger again but couldn't stop wondering who he was and why he had chosen to save him. Gray introduced himself as a dealer in information, mentioning that he has been searching for something special and hoped to find someone just like him. Skeptical of his claim, the protagonist wonders if someone like him could really be a data broker. The boy keeps insisting he's just an information wholesaler who always gives his clients the best secrets. He does most of his business with other information dealers and the money folks at Wedo. He says that after falling into Changgu's trap and thinking he'd die alone, he was actually close to death and almost met a fellow informant instead. Taiha asks if the boy is one of the hostages from that day, wondering if he could recognize him even after seeing him just once. Gray nods with certainty, saying he's aiming for the prize for the youngest data broker, or whatever award is going around. Hearing this, the hero starts scanning the room and takes notice of the gear the boy had with him. After that, he asks how many days have passed, and the boy replies that 4 days have gone by. The man asked himself if he really had slept that long. However, he calls Gray to ask if a broker like that could find someone for him. But the boy had to admit he was just bluffing, saying it was hard to find Taiha and that he'd need another broker to help. He knows that finding a savior costs a fortune, so he insists on asking for something in return for all the medical money he spent. The protagonist ignores everything else and asks if the boy is just saying he can't find the person. Gray wonders what the guy would do if he couldn't do it, but Taiha just turns away and says it doesn't matter. He picks up his jacket, thanks him for the help, and promises to pay him back once everything is settled. The boy questions if he's truly leaving just like that, but the protagonist insists he has unfinished business to take care of first. As his last piece of advice, he tells the boy not to get in the way or try to stop him, because things will end with far more than just one kidnap. Scared, Gray sinks back into his chair, but soon he cracks a smile, realizing that's just how things roll. Once Taiha stepped out of the boy's room, a thick scent of pork hit him, making him wonder if this place was a restaurant. Taiha was shocked when Yengguk told the boy to stop standing on his feet. She warns him that while the small bullets meant he could be stitched up, he's still in real trouble unless he keeps his broken bones still, or even a doctor can't save him. With a polite thank you, the protagonist reveals he believes she is the doctor who saved him and promises to repay her. She tells him she's not a doctor but runs a GBAP restaurant, and warns him to stay away if his stitches start to fall out. So the hero steps out into the open. He glances around, wondering if he's standing in a market. While ignoring those things, Taiha grabs a cell phone. When he answers, he points out that the ringing isn't coming from his phone. Gray tells him that since his own bike is broken, he can use that one until it gets fixed. He tells the protagonist to grab the earphones from the box he put in his pocket and use them. As Taiha picked up the device, he was surprised to find it so big. The kid shows him how the battery and mic work, then points out that the top button on his shirt is actually a camera. The protagonist spoke with absolute certainty, warning that the boy would be dead if he got involved with him. But to his shock, the boy asks why he is wiping out the Chongu family. The boy told him not to be surprised, since even in a mess like Korea, something that big couldn't go unnoticed. While he was out cold, the whole country went wild after hearing that the entire Cheonov family had been caught up in a terrorist attack. Taiha asks why he would need a favor, but the boy explains that in that neighborhood, Ong and Chongu are fighting hard to win the right to rebuild. With two gangs moving in to take over, there are plenty of other troubles making life really hard. Even though the hero's trouble is far more pressing, he'll lend a hand now, but he'll need help down the road in return. Until everything is settled, they must stay in touch, but if Taha refuses, he says he'll have to hand him over to the Cheongu. It was clear the man wasn't having any of it. But he says he's going to see just what kind of kid this brat really is. After a while, he stepped into a crowded street and started walking toward a fancy building. Taiha went to a special bank where he had a very unique safe. With that, he slides open a drawer, hoping to find what he needs. Gray admitted he'd never heard of such a company in Seoul and wondered if they could even find them. The protagonist says these companies run on trust, so they'll never do business with anyone else. He says that most folks go there to hide their treasures or their secrets, making it the safest spot they can find. Seeing this, the boy realizes that the guy is ready to hide his true face. He pauses to think deeply, watching carefully everything Taiha does. He feels puzzled because the killer had no guns, and a knife just wouldn't be enough to do the job. Drops of sweat start dripping down to the floor. His body grew so heavy that keeping his face straight became a struggle, while sharp pains felt like they were stabbing him. He felt the same sting Regina used to give him. The main character wonders if the boy finally found the man he was looking for. He wonders if the Nightum Pill CEO is the same broker who got him into Korea. It seems he worked in Europe, became famous in his field, and is now supposedly hunting for a secret ship to sail to China. Gray says that the pressure from the border went up right after that guy messed with the Cheongu family. The protagonist asks the boy to tell the traders that a ship is available to carry them at a price 10 times higher than usual. His friend asks what he plans to do when he finds that guy, wondering if Taiha wants to come with him. After sliding his knives back into their sheaths, he tells him, "I'm going to kill you." That day he nearly died because someone leaked his info, and Piljung was the only one who knew where to find him. With a freezing chill in his voice, the hero declares that traitors must die. Later, inside the quiet church, he finally admits he doesn't care if the person he's talking to is an old friend or a stranger. A shadowy figure with a hood pulled low slipped quietly into the quiet chapel. The man walks up to the confessional booth, calls out to the priest, and asks if they can have a quick chat. He says a special spell that makes each person carry water back to their own mill. Piljung grumbles that the room feels too cramped and asks why anyone would pick such a holy spot for a get-together. He says he might not look the part, but he is a true Catholic at heart. But the fake priest just wants to know where the cash is, so the informant starts digging through his bag. He showed the 10 million, saying it made more sense to swap it for $10,000. Changing the topic, Piljung admits he needs answers because he knows the country is full of scammers like him, so he can't trust the priest. Gray warns that there are plenty of men waiting outside. Just then, a group of people burst in brandishing knives and clubs. The crazy guy says it's really weird that someone found a ship that even he, who knows everything about finding things, couldn't locate. He said the code of that life was simple: if you tell a lie, you pay with your own life. He agrees that the hero must brace himself for the trouble his choices will cause. Taiha starts the guy by saying he can hardly believe he wouldn't recognize his friend's voice. Piljong couldn't believe his ears because they had promised him they had already killed him. The man quickly sees there's no use in speaking up anymore. He insists he was a fool for not realizing the password was an Italian phrase, and his friend explains that he lost everything gambling in Korea, leaving him with massive debts at the Changgu casinos. As Piljung reaches for his weapon, he tries to tell him he wouldn't have said anything if he'd known they were going to try to kill him. Before he could even finish speaking, Taiha bursts through the confessional wall and drives her weapon straight into his throat. He sinks into hopelessness as he tries to stop the blood pouring from his neck. The men outside stand there, asking what's going on. Through the lens on the protagonist's shirt button, Gray saw the man's body and the blood spreading all over. Gray was absolutely scared to death because Taiha was still fighting even though he was so badly hurt that walking was hard for anyone. As he walked away from the booth, the protagonist admitted that Piljung must have asked them to leave their guns behind to stop any fights from breaking out. The psychopath told everyone to pray and tell God they were soon joining him, whether they worked for him directly or for his friend. Gray was lost until the hero spoke up, warning that seeing them with clubs and knives meant they were already a deadly threat to his life. So there's no point for him to hold back. They wonder what tricks that guy can still pull off with a broken arm. One of them bolts toward the confessional to smash it open, claiming there's money hidden inside. The hero gets ready to beat them. The boy admits that the assassin's broken arm isn't his only issue, because he's also got cracked ribs and bullet holes. But he flows around the blow like water and, in one quick twist, drives his blade right into the back of his enemy's neck. Already lunging for the next target, he slips away from the strike just as he slashes the man's throat. With a swift motion, he hurls the dagger straight into another's neck. One of them sprints over to try and stab him. But John Wick uses his sling to pin the enemy still. In a flash, he drives an elbow strike with his other arm. Taiha knocked out every enemy in a single heartbeat. He says that if you get the upper hand early, it's nearly impossible for your opponents to find their footing again. With so much cash right in front of them, it was clear that their heart rate would spike and they'd lose control. Even so, there was another one hiding among them. One person held on to something they never should have, but a few of the guys rushed right at him. The hero just steps forward, and suddenly, he vanishes right before everyone's eyes. Using his speed, he dashes past the men, clearly aiming to kill whoever meant the most harm to him. The two who lunged at him froze in shock, unsure of what to do next. Even Gray is baffled by what just happened. With that, the gun clatters to the ground as he pushes forward. Even with the chaos outside, the church remained calm as he calmly turned toward the remaining men, asking who was next, while the parking lot held only a single car at that quiet hour. Gray stood inside, staring in shock at what he had just witnessed. He thought the man looked almost not human because even with a broken body, he kept going. Suddenly, Taiha shouts for the boy to see if he can hear her. The protagonist tells the boy to go to the confessional and grab a bag of money because he can't lift it anymore. The scared brat panics and asks what he's talking about, but the guy just replies that he knows exactly where they are. He had warned him about the men before they showed up. Gray stands frozen, not knowing what words to speak. Although he feels a little scared, he takes the mission anyway. So the kid jumps out of the car and heads for the church, then he walks right up to the door. He opens the doors with a little hesitation. Right before his eyes, the church was covered in blood and filled with dead bodies. The main character sat on one of the wooden benches. He shouts from above that he has arrived. Gray gets so nervous he starts walking. When he reached the booth, he saw the body of the protagonist's former friend. He feels queasy, knowing that so many dead bodies are lying all around. The boy says he called a taxi that should be there in 10 minutes. But when the boy looks at Taiha, he sees that she is in terrible condition. He asks what's wrong with the guy and says he'll call Yong Suk to get some medicine for them. But in a wild fit of rage, the madman drives a knife right into his cell phone. Suddenly, Gray stops dead in his tracks, trembling with fear. After taking off his glove, the hero admits that when he opened his eyes, his clothes and phone had been swapped out. The funniest part was that he was still wearing his gloves. The boy just stands there and listens, saying not a word. Taiha's hand was branded with the mark of the Salerno family. As the man stared at the boy, he was convinced he finally knew exactly who he was up against. Gray just nods, remembering his own name, his father's name, and that he is the grandson of the late chairman of the Chayanga group. He is the lone Asian member of the Italian Salerno Mafia, a young man between 20 and 30 years old with a staggering bounty of 5.5 billion on his head. The boy says he had no plans against anyone, not even the lady, and he just needs her help. Taiha questions if that price is worth the danger of losing his life or being killed for his head. Gray tries to explain that they are hiding from Chongu, but the protagonist cuts him off. He decides that giving the boy to Chongu is the best thing to do instead of letting this mess go on. Remembering how the kid earlier said he wanted to win an award by becoming the youngest broker, we realize his career is stuck not because he lacks the drive to do more or join the action, but simply because he isn't experienced enough, which is why the biggest names in this business are usually older. With that, he asks Gray if he's ready to step into a much bigger arena. A short while later, inside a big modern building, two people walked down the halls while one whispered to the other, "Don't say a word unless I ask you to." Hai gets mad and makes sure he never does anything to hurt Ong. His friend mentions that the gang members don't know how to speak properly. Even though he's angry, he has no way to prove him wrong. The two step inside as the man apologizes for making that person wait. After going back to the chapel, Taiha praised the boy's work, promised to help him keep his promise, and asked if they could work together from now on. He warns Gray that walking this path means risking his very life, promising that if he gets caught, the end will be far from easy, but if they pull together, they might just become the best. The hero declared this a promise. In the end, he's ready to finally crush Changgu once and for all. The Ong gang leader sighs, admitting they weren't expecting Chang to call so quickly, knowing he's busy with his family's funerals, but he suddenly raises his hand to silence them. Both freeze in fear, wondering what will happen next. The strange man waves a tiny hand to tell them to be quiet. So he starts bobbing his head up and down to the beat. A speaker starts to play music. He lifts his hand, making a tight fist to show he stands up for himself. The two guys from the Ong gang still don't get the point. Even though no one cheered at first, someone finally started clapping. The man walking with Huam sighs, wishing they'd come a little earlier so they could see the whole story. Chong asks if he has ever heard of that piece before. The man gave it its exact name, but admitted the song felt broken, thinking maybe his own singing was to blame. It's plain to see that the madman isn't happy about this. He tells his guard to shut it off. As Dian pulls back her ears, the guy admits he only ever competed in 6th grade piano and never practiced a single note again. Besides, every single family member who came to watch his show that day is now gone. The man asks if they know what happened, making sure that if they had known who was coming, they wouldn't have been so helpless. But Huan insists he gave a warning, telling them they should have even called off the meeting because the assassin wasn't like anyone else. As he says that Chang ignored his warnings, Chang reaches out to tell him to put the cigarette away, insisting that the other guy knew the most. That look makes him fly into a rage. Chang insists it's a family emergency meeting that can't be called off just because, which is why he paid him 200 million to take care of that man quietly without waking up the rest of the family. He rests his knee against a stick that looks like a cane. As he touches his leg, he admits that after their losses while caring for the assassin, he is now forced to use that thing. With that, the man can't help but think, if every other guard is dead, how is Juan still breathing? The guy insists he's already made it clear that the assassin follows his own dark code and didn't break any of them. With a grin, the madman suggests that maybe a terrorist's rule is to never get hit by their own side. Obviously, this makes women furious, so he tells the guy to stop shouting, asking if he really thinks anyone would risk the honor of his family or group. Chang jokes that it must feel great to have parents to back you up, especially since his own parents are already 6 feet under. Suddenly, another Ong member slips on his glasses, getting ready to step in. The man asked who was in charge of looking after the terrorist. The guy made it clear there was no room for doubt by saying it was Mr. Junu. The girl glances back at the old man with a suspicious look. Juan's partner speaks right to the bodyguard. The old man nods right away, giving it his full word. But even the guy still looks suspicious. He nods that he gets it and asks what Xiang needs from them. The crazy guy says he doesn't care about money at all, he just wants them to keep the secret about what happened. If anyone asks, Quim Min insists he has never seen that assassin before. The guy can't figure out why Chonggu is trying to sweep the whole thing under the rug. His friend flicks a cigarette on and asks if that's all they need. Chong tries to tell him to put out the cigarette, but Jun-soo just reaches out and touches his shoulder. Startled, the man glances at his security guard, who steps in to reassure them both that this will be enough. The Ong rep says he needs a moment to think things over and asks if the bodyguard would like a cigarette too. But the old man thanks him, saying he's finally free from his bad habit. Chang rips the table apart in a fit of rage. He wonders if they aren't scared, thinking about how he'll soon be the new president and asking what that old man is up to. The guy starts hurling insults at that little piece of Saul's, demanding he know his place. Standing up, he explains that his boss would say exactly this, which is the reason he is standing there in his spot. As the man says goodbye and speaks straight to the bodyguard, he confirms that they have both agreed to the deal. He tossed the cigarette butt on the floor and told them to use an ashtray next time, with a wet napkin to clean it up. And so the three stayed in the room, wrapped in a silence so loud it felt like it was screaming. Chong stays silent for a few seconds, saying or doing nothing. Hwan claims he's amazing because he shut down Chonggu's pride with just his words. He pushes his glasses up his nose and insists that's his job, since Chaeyoung clearly doesn't get how things work. He said the old president taught him nothing and deserved his fate for not watching that brat sooner. The man looks completely shocked and asks if you are really trying to say that. The older man calmly explains that Chang probably staged the whole thing just to grab the presidency. The elevator doors slide open and they keep walking, insisting they must find the assassin who attacked the Chaeyoung group. Hwan insists the man is gone, but his friend insists he still has a pulse. In the end, Jun-soo is mighty, yet he never takes a life. The instant he asked the old man and confirmed his suspicions, the guy was blown away by the whole twist. He says it's unlikely Chang hired that man, especially after Junwoo lost so many of his men. The assassin was saved for the very last moment. Hwan recalled how the terrorist he met said he hadn't visited Korea in ages, suggesting they try to win him over and even take full control of Changgu. But the man says that would be good, yet if he does find him, he's still going to have to kill him. He couldn't figure out why things happened the way they did before. But the old man admits that what really gets under his skin is knowing Chang called him, believing him and couldn't possibly stand up to the assassin. So next time they meet, he'll show them exactly who's in charge. Japal complains that he isn't Oh-sang's biggest fan, but he still can't stand watching one of his own men get beaten up. Back inside, as ice cubes tumble into the container, Chang makes sure he's doing something he's finally mastered. He thanked his dad and asked if either of them wanted to take a guess. The broken coffee table still lay in the room, and both bodyguards stood frozen in place. As the whiskey pours into the glass, the man mentions he's really good at catching on to small hints. When the old man asked if Taiha was really gone, the whole room seemed to stop and hold its breath. Sitting on the sofa again, Chong says his bodyguard told him he finished off his cousin, but Taiha jumped and hurt his leg. Plus, his body hasn't been found yet. He lifted the glass to his lips, then paused. The guy's face twists in horror as he asks if Taiha is even alive. Jun-soo asks if the guy means the former young master got away, but the old man says he was the one who shot the boy from the helicopter. Chang insists that if Jun-soo had done his job right, none of this would have been needed. The bodyguard admits that the boy was tougher than he thought. Chang, furious, smashes his glass down on the counter. He tells us that it is time to keep moving ahead. After leaving the room, the guy says his main goal is to win the votes at the board meeting so he can join the committee. The psychopath tells President Jan-soo that no matter if Taiha lives or dies, the old man will never betray him and asks if he agrees. The old man tells him he never breaks a promise. They climbed up to the penthouse to find a helicopter waiting outside, with a group of young men already standing by. Seong couldn't believe it when he saw the guard still standing there. The man says this isn't what he was promised and asks him to change his mind about the transfer. He insists that his long years of loyal service to the Changgu family mean he's no ordinary guard and can't just be reassigned to protect a simple director. Fuming, he admits that if he'd guessed this would happen, he never would have turned on his old boss. The crazy man steps up and demands to know who told the security guard to get punched. Before he moves, Young Min locks eyes with Dian. As she simply lowers her head, his boss warns him that he's lucky not to be fired for such terrible work. Even so, he shouts out Jun-soo's name. The old man whispered for him to stay calm, promising that he'd be back in touch soon. With that, the helicopter lifts off the ground and soars into the sky. Young men simply stood there and watched them walk away. In the less orderly section of the city stands Sap Mrs. Young-suk's restaurant. Tai finally gets it. Gray knew who he was because his dad used to work for the company. The boy explained that seeing the tattoo on his hand and finding the 20-year-old Asian man behind the Cheon-gu massacre finally made everything click, proving it wasn't so bad, and the protagonist agreed, saying it truly wasn't bad at all. His adoptive mom says he's got way too much free time on his hands. Young-suk tells the boy that a Changgu seeking revenge needs a solid plan, not just standing there talking, which makes Gray choke on his food and wonder if the lady would betray him just to watch him get busy. While he thinks this, the psychopath tells himself that traitors must die. His colleague steps in to make things better, yet the woman insists that this outcome is just right. She says a man who lived his whole life for the mafia can never easily trust others. But the hero claims he was just clearing things up so they'd be ready for any trouble that might come up. He tells the lady not to worry, saying that anyone hated by Changgu or Ong is not truly his enemy. So Taiha finally returns to her meal, eating in peace again. They both understand the killer is saying he could protect them later if anyone betrays him. Out of nowhere, a bunch of tough guys burst into the restaurant, grumbling about the storm outside. He tells the woman to crank the air conditioning up to its highest setting and asks her how she expects to pay interest if the customers don't stay. Young-suk shouts that she has paid everything and asks why they are making such a scene again. She tells Taiha to head back after eating and smoking, while also ordering Gray to go to school. Boxer tells her to stay out of it and promises he won't hurt either of them. He looks puzzled and annoyed about something. He claimed he'd never seen that boy around and wondered how anyone could end up eating in such a place. But the protagonist was shocked just how big that radish kimchi had grown. The guy gets so mad he yells if the kid is choking on his food. Standing up, Gray tells the lady he's off to school. He walks toward the exit, glancing back at the promise he made to his colleague before he could even hear the favors. He begs Taha not to kill or cause trouble, pleading that he not drive the neighbors apart. The protagonist asks if the boy thinks he chases people without thinking, but Gray admits that's exactly what he did. He brings the conversation back around and asks what exactly he wants. His colleague tells him that Changgu and Ong are locked in a long, bloody fight for the 3rd district of Jiangxio. Just as a local gang named Yaburi was about to turn the fight into chaos, the battle suddenly stopped. But Taiha wonders if a tiny gang could really stop the big fight between Changgu and Ong. Gray told him not to worry, since Yaburi would make sure everyone stayed safe. But they're also buying up buildings to form a housing cooperative so they can argue their case better in the future. The protagonist realizes that Gray clearly doesn't agree with that. He points out that if a deal were the answer, they would have struck one already, especially since the mayor won with Ong's help. Young-suk tried to talk to the boss, but since he didn't care about her, he asked Taiha to speak for her instead. But he was never allowed to take a life or cause lasting harm to anyone. Though the hero thinks they are just common thugs, they somehow scared the crime bosses into submission. He just stands up and thanks the lady. Boku, annoyed, asks if he's really going to ignore him, but just as he tries to reach the brat, Young-suk steps in his way. She tells him she already told him not to touch her paying customers and wonders why the ugly one is even there. He lifts his hand to slap her and asks who she means when she calls her face rotten. But Taiha blocks the slap with a bowl. So, before Gray could even leave the shop, the 3 thugs flew right through the door. The main character follows right behind them as they step out. The boy couldn't believe that the crazy man did all of that in less than 10 seconds. Shaking with fear on the ground, Bu asks if that brat even knows who he is. As he walks toward the men, he knows his revenge will need 30 big plans, even though some parts are still up in the air. After all, he hadn't counted on his real foe being Chaeyong, so he calls it a failure, yet he can still guess what Chaeyong plans for the future. Even though he carries the Jin family name, the board of directors must still vote him in to become president. So, he plans to use the new Jano district to throw off the board and make the delinquents take him straight to their boss. While people on this side of the street wonder if the boy is crazy, a girl on the other side asks who he is. Suri challenges him to start a war against her whole gang by himself. Taiha just shakes her head calmly, pulls out a cigarette, lights it, and tells him she's only there to talk. Suri doubts his words and can't believe him while his men lie dead on the ground. But the hero just looks at them, knowing exactly what is happening. The boy apologizes, noting that they don't seem interested in listening, so he decides he doesn't want to talk to people like that either. Looking up, Taiha finally understood how they had managed to keep both sides in balance. He sees that with armed men spread across every building, if they seize the whole city, Yong's third district will turn into their main base. If one of them was a former officer, they surely have a top-notch system, and the girl wonders if this is how Korea keeps itself safe before telling him to speak quickly and calling him a scoundrel for Mong or Changgu. That clearly makes the madman furious. But before he can take even one step, a shot cracks against the pavement right in front of him. Siri warned him to say where he came from or risk being full of holes. The girl insists the brat had better move fast. But this only makes the killer even angrier. He tightens his fist, insisting that while he knew this day would come, he can't believe it's turning out this rotten. Her guards warn her it's dangerous and ask if they should kill him. She quickly shouts out for a man named Hyuri Yang. Her team member leaps from the building's peak and lands right before the hero. The man was a giant, literally known as the tank. The crazy man stands frozen, just staring right at the kid. But instead of panicking, Taiha just told the guard to get out of the way. The man stood frozen in one spot, just staring right at him. Surprisingly, the guard follows the protagonist's orders and leaves Suri baffled as her other subordinates run toward them, prompting her to ask how he could betray her like that. It's a shock to see the assassin simply grab the milkshake she was sipping and go with it. He tosses it aside, declaring that it's no surprise why nothing the girl does ever goes her way. She stands there, completely confused and wondering exactly what just took place. He leans in close to whisper a secret into her ear while staring up at the building. She gets lost and terrified as everything suddenly turns wrong. Turning away, the protagonist remarks that either choice doesn't seem worth his time. The girl couldn't move as her men asked if they should chase him down.